During one of the darkest periods in American history, there was a man walking the streets of Chicago who made the entire Mafia world tremble when they heard his name. What if I told you that this man rejected Al Capone's $1 million bribe offer and declared war on the city's most powerful crime empire by risking his life? Don't forget to send your stories to the email address in the description.
On a cold January morning in 1930, on the 6th floor of Chicago's Federal Building, the pale sunlight filtering through the icy windows illuminated the determined face of a young man sitting at his desk. Eliot Ness, 26 years old, with neatly combed thick brown hair and gray eyes watching the smoke clouds rising on the city's horizon, held a coffee cup in his hand, and the steam rising from it resembled the corruption fog covering Chicago. The Prohibition Era, which began with the 18th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, had literally divided the country in two. Alcohol sales were legally banned, but this prohibition had created a complete crime paradise in big cities like Chicago. On the south side of the city, the empire established by Alphonse Gabriel Capone was earning more than $100,000 a day. This money didn't come only from illegal liquor trade. Gambling, prostitution, extortion, and all kinds of illegal activities were under the control of this Italian-American gangster nicknamed Scarface. When Ness opened the thick file on his desk, the photographs and documents that confronted him revealed how deep a pit the city had fallen into. The police chief, the mayor, and even some federal agents were on Capone's payroll. Bribery had become Chicago's new currency, and no one dared to fight against this dirty system. Ness, who was a special representative of the Federal Treasury Department, felt his heart beating rapidly as he read the instructions from Washington. A special team would be formed to capture Al Capone for tax evasion, and he would lead this team. However, this mission was much more dangerous than an ordinary tax investigation, because Capone's empire was protected not only with money, but also with bullets and blood. Ness's first job was to find trustworthy men. He couldn't trust Chicago's police force because most officers were in Capone's pocket. When he closed his eyes, he thought of his old college friends, honest agents he had worked with, and trustworthy people he knew from his family. This team had to have steel-solid characters because the bribe offers they would face would be of dimensions that most people couldn't resist. In the first week of February, Ness's chosen 9-man team gathered in the secret meeting room of the Federal Building. Among them was Martin J. Lahart, an Irish-American man with blue eyes and a strong build. Lahart had fought in France during World War I and possessed that quiet determination characteristic of veterans. Next to him sat Sam Seeger, a tall, calm-natured man from the mountainous regions of Kentucky who could fight like a lion when necessary. The youngest member of the team was 23-year-old Paul Robski, the son of a Polish immigrant family. Tightly bound to the American dream, a young agent who hated injustice. When Ness looked at his men, he could see the same determination in each of their eyes. These were not just officers doing their jobs, but warriors who believed in America's values, were disgusted by corruption, and were ready to fight for truth. At the beginning of the meeting, he placed a Bible on the table and made each one swear an oath. No matter what happens, whatever bribe offer comes, we will not give up on this case. Their first operation was to raid a liquor depot on the south side, in the middle of March. On a night when snowfall was heavy, Ness and his team took positions in front of a building used as an old warehouse. The sounds coming from inside the building showed that hundreds of barrels of illegal whiskey were being processed. Lahart had crept beside the door, Seeger was controlling the back exit, and Robski was keeping watch on the roof. With Ness's now signal, the doors were broken down. The scene they saw inside revealed the dimensions of Chicago's illegal liquor trade. Hundreds of barrels of whiskey, gin, and rum were being bottled with modern machines. The workers tried to escape when they saw the federal agents, but Ness's team had calculated every corner beforehand. That night, $500,000 worth of illegal liquor was seized, and 12 people were arrested. This success resonated throughout the city. The newspapers carried the success of this team, which they called the Untouchables, to the headlines. However, the real war had just begun. Capone had perceived this operation as a personal insult and didn't delay in retaliating. Men emerging from black cars waiting in front of Ness's house began threatening him. His phone would ring, and mysterious voices would hurl death threats. At the beginning of April, the opportunity that appeared before Ness would change his life forever. Frank Nitti, Capone's right-hand man, had arranged a secret meeting. In one of the luxury suites of the Palmer House Hotel, the city's most powerful men came together. Nitti, with his elegant suit, perfect shave, and cold gaze, was a typical Mafia representative. On the table lay a thick envelope containing $5,000 bills. "Mr. Ness," said Nitti, slowly blowing cigarette smoke, "you are a valuable man. Your talents are being wasted. This money is just the beginning. If you work with us, you can earn $10,000 a month. Your wife won't be unhappy either, nor will your children." When Ness saw the money in the envelope, he hesitated for a moment. This money was more than 10 times his annual salary. His wife Edna's face appeared before his eyes. They lived in a modest house and had to watch every penny. With this money, they could buy a beautiful house and live a comfortable life. However, then he thought of his university education, the values he had sworn to uphold, and his faith in America. He stood up and pushed the envelope back onto the table. "Mr. Nitti," he said without any hesitation in his voice, "this money is not enough to buy me. I am an agent of the United States of America, and I will never abandon my duty." The friendly expression on Nitti's face gave way to a cold threat. "Then," he said, standing up, "you will bear the consequences." The next day, Ness's car was bombed. Fortunately, he wasn't in the car at the time, but the message was clear. Capone had now abandoned diplomatic ways. From now on, the war would continue with bullets and blood. In May, Ness's team conducted an operation on the largest liquor production center on the South Side. This time, they faced not just workers, but heavily armed gangsters. The clash erupted in the middle of the city, in an area where innocent civilians were also present. Lahart was wounded in the shoulder. A bullet grazed Seeger's head, but none of them retreated. When Robsky managed to enter from the back of the building, the scene that confronted him shocked him. Alcohol being boiled in huge cauldrons, modern bottling machines, perfect labeling systems. This was a real factory. Capone's organization was so professional that even big corporations would envy it. At the end of the operation, $2 million worth of illegal liquor was seized, and 28 people were arrested. But more importantly, they managed to access Capone's financial records. These documents contained the evidence needed to prove the tax evasion crime. Throughout the summer, Ness's team conducted operations in every corner of Chicago. Secret clubs in Lincoln Park, speakeasies on the near North Side, gambling houses in the South Loop. Each operation tore away a piece from Capone's empire. However, each success brought greater dangers with it. At the end of August, Agent Joe Fusco, Ness's closest friend, was found dead in his car. The bullet wound was at the back of his head. This was a clear message sent by Capone. Whoever opposed him, no matter who they were, would be punished by death. At Fusco's funeral, Ness had both anger and determination in his eyes. His speech at his friend's coffin, in front of his family and team members, perfectly reflected his character. Joe died for justice. His death will not be in vain. We will continue our struggle until we bring down Capone's empire. In September, intelligence that came into Ness's hands showed that Lou Shumway, Capone's personal accountant, could be captured. Shumway was the person who knew all of Capone's financial transactions and had the documents that would prove the tax evasion crime. However, reaching him meant entering the Lexington Hotel, which was Capone's heart. In the first week of October, Ness and his team surrounded the 147-room Lexington Hotel. The hotel was like a fortress. Every floor had armed men, secret passages, and escape routes. Capone ruled the city from here and felt secure. The operation began in the early hours of the morning. Ness entered through the main entrance of the hotel. Lahart through the back entrance, and Seeger and Robsky through the fire escapes. The hotel's lobby, with its luxurious carpets, crystal chandeliers, and expensive paintings, was like a palace. However, this beauty hid the corruption that lay beneath. When they reached the third floor, they encountered Capone's men. The clash continued in the hotel's corridors, in an environment where guests were fleeing and screams were rising. Ness was going through one of the most dangerous moments of his life. One bullet passed by his ear, another pierced his jacket sleeve. Finally, they reached Shumway's room. When they broke down the door, the accountant was trying to escape through the window. Robsky managed to catch him, and the briefcase he carried was full of Capone's financial records. These documents contained the evidence that would prove Capone's tax evasion crime at the end of years of struggle. Ness and his team had obtained the trump cards needed to capture Chicago's most powerful criminal. In November, Al Capone was arrested. His trial became one of the most talked about cases in American history. Ness, sitting in the courtroom next to his wife Edna, felt that after years of struggle, justice had finally been achieved. Capone's imprisonment marked the beginning of a new era in Chicago. Illegal liquor trade continued, but no gang could ever reach the power that Capone had possessed. On the city's streets, federal agents now walked more safely. Ness, sitting in the same room, at the same desk, in the federal building, watched the city's transformation while looking out the window. Chicago's sky now looked cleaner. Children played more safely on the streets. The pain of years of struggle and the sadness of the losses experienced were still in his heart. But his faith in America's values was stronger than ever. The story of the Untouchables was not just a story of fighting crime, but also a story of people who stood up for America's values, fought against injustice, and never compromised their principles in the face of money and power. This story continues to inspire everyone who fights against corruption even today. Years later, when Ness retired, while walking on the streets of Chicago, an elderly Italian woman approached him. The woman, in tears, said, "Thanks to you, my grandchildren can play safely on the street." At that moment, Ness once again understood how valuable all the dangers, losses, and sacrifices had been. Capone's empire had collapsed, but the legacy he left behind symbolized the victory of justice and honesty in America. Each member of the Untouchables carried this pride throughout their lives and passed it on to future generations.
The struggle of Eliot Ness and the Untouchables shows us that no power is greater than truth and justice. In Chicago's darkest period, a handful of honest people managed to change the entire system. The freedoms we enjoy today might be possible thanks to these brave people who risked their lives in those years. In your opinion, if you had to wage such a struggle today, could you act like Ness? Share your thoughts with us in the comments, and if you want to hear more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel.